throughout all these years of building Cleve, what are the two biggest mistakes?
It's actually very much a personal journey, very much more a personal journey than a business journey at the end of the day. And like recognizing that, you do have to kind of like learn and adapt and like become a better person through this process. And that's actually one of the biggest changes that you'll see in your life, I think, largely.
Why is intuition so important that you put it as first step instead of what other people say? Let's start from the data.
Because I think if you just look at the data, there's so much to look at. And if you're not critically thinking about why things are happening the way they are happening from an intuition perspective, you can't make progress.
For founders listening right now, what's the one piece of advice you give them before they start?
I think the most important thing is to have faith in yourself, actually, like have conviction in yourself.
You have scaled from 0 to how many users now?
25,000.
How did you get your first 100 paying customers back then?
Yeah, so
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube for more. Also, if you want to become a better founder by learning from founder and failed startup stories, don't forget to subscribe to my free newsletter. Check it out at therunway.ventures. Let's get into it. Hey Ashwin, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast.
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Ashwin is the co-founder and CEO of Cleve, an AI tool that helps creators and leaders create content faster. You actually went viral and went from 0 to 20,000 plus users, right, in a year. So there's so much stuff that we can talk about and then maybe share about your journey there. But before that, maybe could you share more about your background, your founder story, and basically your journey of building Cleve from 0 to 1.
Yeah, so I think among me and my co-founders,
Yes.
all three of us, after university, we did the different thing where instead of like starting a job straight away, all three of us actually kind of like started our own businesses. And it was kind of like we were mainly just freelancing and we were trying to find clients and stuff like that. So like as we were like, broke students trying to make money for the first time, we were thinking, okay, what could we do, right? And we could technically spend on Facebook ads, we could do other stuff, but we all kind of just decided to like start creating content because it just felt like the most clear thing to do at the time. And yeah, like for all three of us, even though we were doing different businesses, content was actually the thing that like drove a lot of the impact and the sales and stuff like that in our early days when we were nobodies and we were trying to start something. So like, I think that's where we kind of realized that there is a lot of power in content. And then we felt like a lot of the existing tools that support content workflows aren't that good. We tried a bunch of things and it was always kind of inefficient. So then, we decided like, hey, why not we build our own? So that's kind of like where it all started.
Wow. And wait, you mentioned you have 3 co-founders. Right.
Yeah.
I know you and then Lizzie and the other
Rashad.
one, Rashad as well. Did
Yeah.
you guys start together since WAC, or like I understand that before you guys started building Cleve, you, Lizzie, and is that only you and Lizzie that?
Oh, it's just me and Lizzie. For WAC. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we were both kind of students.
Yeah.
At the time, and then we wanted to kind of like so we started freelancing, and then that became an agency. Once we got like started hiring, we just call it an agency. But like that was me and Lizzie, and then Rashad was kind of like doing AI research, and also while he was studying, he was also doing a bunch of freelance projects, and then after he was freelancing in generative AI for about 2 years, working with different projects all around the world, and he was kind of like doing his own business there. And he was writing articles on Medium, posting content on TikTok. But primarily Medium was what drove a lot of his early successes as well in getting clients from around the world in the generative AI space.
Right. Okay, before that, right, maybe let's wind back to the days when you and Lizzie were building WAC, because I think there's a big correlation there, right? So what actually motivated you and Lizzie to bootstrap WAC, which is a content agency or personal branding agency, during your university days? And what was the biggest surprise back then with your face in the first few months? Because I assume that you and Lizzie were still studying. How do you even juggle between studying and
Yeah.
running a business, man. Yeah.
So I think it started during like second year school
Okay.
holidays, so like
Mm.
summer break. So you wanted to just do something for fun,
Mm.
mainly, and then I think that's where we like, let's see, yeah. So we were just kind of like messing around, and then like trying to find some clients, and then like over time we just got enough clients to start hiring more people, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it was stumbling across the whole personal branding space was quite random.
Mm.
We were actually just taking all kinds of clients. So I had skills in video editing, Lizzie had skills in copywriting and design, and we were like, hey, if we work together, we could probably like get some clients, small businesses, and like serve them in all these different kinds of ways. So yeah, I think one client led to another, and then it was one client that was like, hey, actually, could you help me build my personal brand? That's kind of like a thing that I want to do, and I'm willing to kind of like pay for it and stuff. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, let's try this out. And then I think that's where we started really seeing there's a lot more scalability and a lot more fun in building for this specific niche, and it's kind of an underserved niche. And then that's where we went a lot further, deeper into that. Yeah.
Cool. And was it like a ghostwriting kind of service that you wrote for the person, or you provided some sort of strategy to your clients back then at work?
A combination. So we would actually also write. We would do the
Okay.
interviews. We would ask some questions, and then turn those into shorts, videos as well, and then carousels. So we design all the stuff, and then we'd also do the writing. Yeah.
How do you get your first customer? Like when you had nothing and you just started?
Yeah, I was
Legit.
posting content on LinkedIn and Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of sharing what I was learning in marketing. I was actually studying
Yeah.
engineering at the time. So
Okay.
I actually wanted to, like, I couldn't get clients in engineering because that's so much harder.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if I want to learn business and I want to learn, and I'm interested in marketing, then like maybe I should just, study marketing and then share whatever I'm learning. So that was kind of the process, yeah. And then I was just posting that all over the internet.
On LinkedIn mainly, or different platforms?
LinkedIn and Facebook, yeah.
LinkedIn and Facebook.
But
Okay.
primarily LinkedIn, yeah.
Okay, and then slowly you and Lizzie Bootstrap, and then slowly build out the team there. From there, right? For WAC.
Yeah.
What was the peak revenue back then? Like running rack.
It wasn't huge. I think we were doing like higher six figures. In ringgit. So yeah.
Okay, and you hire all the teams in like local team, right? Or do you offshore any?
All local. In Malaysia, yeah.
Okay. So you back then you were running back for how many years?
2 years.
2 years. Oh, so from second year and then you ran until before you graduated.
Yeah.
Then
so
you
actually
started
the whole time, while we were building the agency, we always kind of knew that we wanted to explore tech, and we were actually the whole time we were kind of like designing stuff on Figma, like learning how to use all these tools. We were hiring software people as well, interns to be fair. But yeah, we would hire an intern. We would ask them, hey, could you try working on this? And then so that didn't go out so well because we really didn't know how to go about all the startup stuff. So at the time it was kind of like just just playing around, trying to figure out how to get into like building tech products.
But what kind of tech products were you guys like fiddling?
So we were exploring a bunch of ideas around the marketing and content space. Also to solve our own problems in running the agency. So we did build, I think one thing that actually was quite helpful is we built out quite a lot of systems on Notion. And that actually, surprisingly, was actually very relevant because you can prototype like systems in Notion, and then like when you want to build the actual tech for it, the fundamentals are not that different, right? So it was actually quite interesting. Like I spent a lot of time on Figma and Notion helped me understand a lot of backend stuff and like how databases work and how structured data works. And then Figma helped me understand a lot of the front end stuff. And then when I was doing like auto layouts, it helped me understand CSS and how the web is designed. So interestingly, those two tools came in surprisingly helpful when it came to actual product design. and working with technical people to build actual products. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Then as you're building this, right? When did you actually, or maybe okay, let me rephrase this. What signs told you that it was a, time to build a product, Cleve, right? Instead of, doubling down on your agency model. Why tech but not agency model? Since I understand maybe agency is hard to scale, but it's also profitable or can get customers easily than building a SaaS product. Like what makes you want to jump from agency model to building a product?
Yeah, so I think we always wanted to explore tech. We always wanted to kind of like learn how tech works in general, and like we wanted to build products. Like it was always kind of like something we were excited to do. We just didn't have, I guess, a sense of direction when we were trying to do it ourselves. And then also, I think we didn't even know the books and resources that are available, like how to even get into this stuff at the time. So I think it was more of like when the opportunity to join the Antler cohort in Malaysia came about. That's where we realized that, oh wow, okay, this is actually pretty interesting. Like we should kind of explore this, and like this could be an opportunity for us to kind of like get those ideas that have always been like in our heads or kind of like in rough prototypes, and figure out how to turn it into an actual business. Yeah.
Were you like the first batch that joined Ansler cohort back then?
Yeah, in
When
Malaysia.
they
Yeah,
started? Wait, when was it? Is it like in
that was 1.5 years ago. So in
1.5 years ago?
October 23. Yeah.
Okay, so you and Lizzie joined Ansler together,
Yeah.
and then started brainstorming what kind of startup ideas that you guys wanted to build.
Pretty
Okay,
much.
yeah.
Yeah. We actually
So
went through
yeah.
like maybe 30 or so ideas during the batch.
Okay.
Like we just listed out every kind of problem that we encountered, especially because like we were familiar with what it's like building in the 0 to 1 phase in an
Yeah.
agency setting, or in a marketing space. So we were kind of like listing out pretty much all the problems that we faced before, while we were building, and then like just going like one by one and trying to evaluate these problems. Like, are they things that we want to work on? Are there solutions in the space that we want to work on? And then I think that's kind of like how we made the decision towards working on like a content tool. Yeah.
Can you walk me through how you eventually came to this startup idea and then started building Cleve? Because you have so many ideas beforehand, right? How do you eventually come to this idea?
Yeah, so I think it came down to a few things. Like we were trying to figure out what's idea that we would first of all be excited to work on for like the next 10 years kind of thing. Like a problem that we would want to work on. We also, so that was kind of like one of the key criteria. It also had to be something that both me and Lizzie were interested in working on. So like I think co-founder interest was kind of like one of the selection criteria. Then we had a bunch of other things like market sizing and business competitors, that the usual stuff. And then also our unique leverage. So I think when it came to the personal branding, like content creation space, I think we were, we've been speaking to the customers for 2 years. We have a rough understanding of like what kind of needs there would be, and what are the pain points and challenges of the customers. So it was kind of like translating that into a product. So it's kind of like, you want to ideally pick things that you have slightly higher leverage in, such that your probability of success is slightly higher. So I guess that's kind of like where that came from. And I guess throughout the process but it wasn't kind of like the first idea we went with. Actually, we were building like some other things during the cohort, and then we were pivoting quite a lot as well. Yeah.
And how do you validate this idea back then?
So we did put out a wait list. We built out a landing page really quickly on Wix, and then we spoke to a bunch of people. And then also like on the B2B side, we were also kind of like reaching out to a bunch of organizations that we felt this could be a solution that would benefit them. And managed to get some LOIs in that space as well. Yeah.
Oh, LOI, okay. So that was also in the B2B space that you were also okay. Well, interesting.
Because like if you look at the way that thought leadership is shaping today, what the most modern forward-thinking organizations are doing is they're actually enabling a series of influencers within their company, like corporate influencers in a way, or like people who are being the face of the brand, and they're just posting a lot all over the internet, and they do it in a way that makes them really the only company you can think of for their niche, just because they're so visible, and people want to hear from people, so the performance of the content, the effectiveness is also a lot higher. So I think that's the general space that we've also been kind of exploring, the thought leadership and how do you do strategic thought leadership. And the key bottleneck for a lot of companies in executing that is just time. Just because it's content does take a lot of time. So if you can have better workflows, better processes, then there could be a good opportunity there for organizations to take this up.
So this use case is more of like, how do you say, the employer's branding per se, that companies want their employees to use, write content themselves to also promote the company and build the brand for them, right? Okay. Yeah. Is that something that Cleve is already doing now, or exploring the B2B? Yeah.
So we do have some agencies working with us. We do have some organizations as well. And I think there's two parts to it. One is the employer branding side for talent attraction. So getting the best talents to apply to this company. That's a big thing. But the other low-hanging fruit is also lead generation. So and high quality leads. A lot of times, if you have a team of 20 sales reps, and they're all doing cold outreach, for example, on LinkedIn, or actually mainly on LinkedIn, the effectiveness of that whole cold outreach strategy will just get so much higher if all 20 have legit profiles they're posting regularly. The profiles that they outreach that kind of cold, that ghosted them, they might come across one of their pieces of content and then be like, oh, actually I should reply, so we're seeing kind of this is more of pipeline generation for the sales teams, and that's kind of where there's a unique value there as well. So if you want to do this strategically, and if you want to track the performance and all that kind of stuff, then Cleve has a solution in that space too. But our bread and butter right now, and the segment that has kind of picked up the most traction has always been the consumer side. So, but even consumers, it's kind of mostly founders, entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, consultants that benefit from Cleve. Yeah.
So walk me through the early days, right? When you were building Cleve, what was the notable experiment that you ran that failed terribly? Experiment that you ran back then, yeah.
Sorry, could we pause for one?
Sure.
Redo this question. Let me just... Yo, can you hear me?
Yo, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, yeah. Had to
no worry. Can. No worry. Yeah, take your time, because it's...
Okay.
It can be edited. Wait, what was I asking? Oh, okay. So let me...
Mistakes, yeah.
Yeah, just that. Okay, so... In your early days of building Cleve, what was the experiment that, failed terribly, that you ran back then? Because I understand you might be running many experiments to test and validate things, right? Was there an experiment that failed terribly, and what do you learn from that experiment?
Yeah, I think especially in the early days, we were kind of testing a bunch of different UIs, different UXs on what's the most efficient way for people to drop ideas, build a personal context within Cleve, and then turn that into content. I think in the early days, it was largely UX related, where the product was just absolutely unusable, and most people could not figure out how to use it. And it's interesting. We would make and it's interesting. We would make very minor changes to the UX. For example, certain buttons, we would change the colors, or we would because people would think it's disabled, or we would change the we would follow more standard UX standards in other products, and then people would just kind of get it straight away. So I think there's an art to kind of going against the grain and like building something new, but then at the same time, repeatability and recognizability, especially for UX, that's something we realized is actually like if you can imitate something that exists in the market, often it is better, especially for UX side. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because customers don't have to have that learning curve. And I think to an extent, I think a lot of products you will still have a learning curve, but you want to try to make it as familiar as possible to the users as possible. So I think that was kind of like one of the main ones. Otherwise, it's always been like a series of like launching different kinds of products. One product that we tried launching, it was kind of like a marketing product, like a growth product, was this Roast Me, which is still live on our website. So it's kind of like you drop your LinkedIn profile and then you get roasted by AI. And that actually generates like a sizable amount of traffic right now.
Yeah.
But initially, it was actually like not that great. So what we realized is when we made that Roast Me product, people on LinkedIn are excited to do the roast, but they wouldn't share it on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Unlike TikTok. So we went viral on TikTok and Instagram before, but on LinkedIn it's different because people don't really want to share their roasts on LinkedIn, interestingly. Yeah.
This is crazy. I think I saw the link that you posted to basically roast me kind of thing, right? I realized there's also another experiment that you ran, and I'm sure a lot of people know that it's called LinkedIn Unwrapped. And basically you built this feature in like 2 weeks and it went crazily viral. Like Alex Hormozy even picked it up, and commented and all this. It went so crazy. Like, will you walk me through how you and your co-founders came up with this idea, LinkedIn Unwrapped, and the journey of building this, and what happened after it went viral? Like, what do you guys do, after it went viral to capture the attention that you have? Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy. I think we were having lunch one day at a random banana leaf place, and this is kind of like after Spotify Wrapped was released, and we were kind of comparing our Spotify Wraps, and it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then like I think Lizzie or Rashad had this idea, hey, what if we did the LinkedIn, like the Unwrapped for LinkedIn, and we try to like summarize everyone's year on LinkedIn, because like the thing with Spotify Wrapped is it's interesting, but it's not that useful. But if you had like lots of context and you have what AI can do, you can build something that's way more interesting and way more useful. And that's kind of like where we were like, hey, what if we actually did this? But now to make that decision, we would have to basically pause product development for about estimated a month at the time. And we had to kind of like really hedge all our bets, like stop everything that we're doing on marketing, stop everything that we're doing on influencer, on ads and stuff like that, and like fully focus on this. So it was kind of like, oh, this is
all
a big
hands
decision.
on deck. All hands on deck.
All hands on deck. Like if we want to do this, if we want to execute this, it's got to be really good. And that was actually my first time realizing that focus and really stopping a lot of things to focus on one big bet can be useful. There are times to do that. And I mean, it's not like an enormous bet. It's like 1 month. We were expecting 2 weeks to build, and then like 1 month in total. But yeah, like I guess we decided like, okay, you know what, let's do it. And then so we started building, like we started designing, we started testing with initial users. Even before the product was ready, we were already kind of like posting unwraps and like sharing it with friends and stuff like that, just trying to get feedback. So we had a bit more of like we knew what people would want from this. So I think we went through a couple of those design iteration cycles. I think in this case, design is really everything. Of course, like, hats off to Rashad for being able to code this whole thing in 2 weeks. That was ridiculous. By the way, we're a 3-person team at the time, right? So it was literally just Rashad, me, and Lizzie. And yeah, like I think, but yeah, the design was actually so important. Like if the first page and if the novelty of the design was not good enough, it likely would not have taken off the way it did. So I think that's kind of like where a lot of that came in. So it was 2 weeks. we basically told ourselves that on the 5th of December, when Spotify Wrapped was released, we cannot release this on Christmas week because everyone's off LinkedIn. Like nobody is, the platform is pretty much dead from the 25th to the 31st of December. So if we wanted to do this, it has to be before that. And we're like, okay, can we really do this? It's like, okay, sure. Let's try. So it was a lot of nights where Rashad was like kind of staying over, and we were just building until late night, every night, and like trying to meet the deadline. And we managed to launch on the 16th or 17th of December. And straight away it started like, I don't know, initially the first day was like, okay, we started getting like, I don't know, a few hundred people doing it.
But
How do you
promote this? Like you just post on LinkedIn or like?
Yeah, just post it on LinkedIn.
So,
like we actually didn't spend any money on the whole campaign. Actually, in general, we haven't really spent much money on marketing. Like in the product, it was mostly product driven growth and stuff. But yeah, like in this case, yeah, we were just posting on LinkedIn, and then we built up a wait list of initial people who were interested during the 2 weeks while Rashad was building. And then on that day of launch, yeah, we sent it out to the wait list first, so they had exclusive access, and then they would post their unwraps. And then that started building a lot of the hype, especially because we had some people in the wait list. So shout out to people like Benjamin Law, a few other people as well, Andy Pear as well, who were like quite influential in their own spaces. And then when they shared it, like it started triggering a lot of like other people to share as well. So yeah, so then it was kind of like a very, like if you actually look at the numbers on a graph, it was a pure exponential. It was crazy for the first like week. And with exponentials, right, the starting is always kind of slow, and you really see it climb up over time. It was such a interesting experience to be part of something that went viral. And then during the 25th to the 31st, just as we hypothesized, everything just kind of flatlined. And then we also hypothesized that on the 31st, that was going to be our peak day, because everyone wants to kind of like post their
New Year resolution.
Yes. And they wanted to post their like, okay, last day of the year, here's my wrap up for the year. So exactly as predicted, it flatlined quite a bit. I mean, it was still growing, but like nothing compared to before. And then on the 30th and 31st, it just like peaked like crazy. And then I think we went from 30,000 users to 100,000 users in that 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah, the 30th to 31st. So that was like it really, a lot happened during that period. And then I think subsequently in the first week of January. Yeah, so it was quite an exciting season. Managed to get a lot of users as well for Cleve through that project. Unwrapped was free. But at the end of the Unwrapped, we would kind of like tell our story, and then also kind of like share the main thing that we're working on, which is the Cleve app. And yeah, a bunch of people like started using it, and it was so nice to have so many conversations in so many different time zones. Pretty much every night I was doing customer support until like 5, 6
I saw the screenshot you shared, the customer service. People ask random questions and then you were like replying them.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Languages. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, especially like I think in Europe there are so many people who were doing it, and in so many languages. And they would actually ask for help in customer support in their own languages. So I was using ChatGPT to translate, bring it back, and then like to reply them and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is crazy, man. Like from 30,000 to 100K within 2 days. And how do you capture that opportunity? Because you mentioned LinkedIn Unwrapped is free to use. Do they need to sign up for Cleve before they could use LinkedIn Unwrapped? Or
no, so we wanted to make it as frictionless as possible. So they do have to drop their email, and then they have to drop their LinkedIn profile, and that was it. Yeah. Okay. So we wanted to really minimize friction as much as possible. And then the other thing was at the end of so we did a lot of A/B testing actually. So pretty much every day after we launched, it was A/B testing on the offers at the end, on the marketing copy. We tested like so we actually had a dynamic page that sent randomized. So after the Unwrapped, right?
Then the next page. underneath.
yeah, that next page is where we did a lot of testing to try and figure out what's the best way to kind of capture this audience. And yeah, I think through a couple iterations we started seeing like, okay, some of our tests were actually performing better than others, and then and so some of our offers were doing better than others. That was actually really useful insight for our own business as well. Like, so we know what are the main pain points that people are willing to kind of like explore and click into. But yeah, like I think above everything, like the amount of insight generated during this was like really, really helpful to understand the customers and like what we need to build.
Okay. So what is your main takeaway from this whole LinkedIn Unwrapped journey?
So
Yeah.
So unrelated to just what I just shared, but my main takeaway honestly is like you really can just be yourself. And I think for the longest time, I think when we were building the product, we were trying to be this like, polished tech company and stuff like that. But during the LinkedIn Unwrapped, like when we were designing the product, we were just like being our Gen Z selves and just having fun with it, and like kind of like incorporating a lot of jokes into it. Like even in the loading screen, a lot of people commented on this, but like we put a lot of like it was really a lot of random stuff in the product that just made it more fun. And even in the design of the whole Unwrapped sequence, it was kind of like, oh yeah, how can we maximize fun and interest and stuff like that. So a lot of that kind of like just being ourselves and allowing ourselves to just kind of like have fun with things. I think that made a big difference in how the product came out. So like I think this whole notion of like, I think Naval Ravikant talks about this, the best way to kind of like win in a market is to target the niche that is yourself essentially, and like really be yourself and be authentic. And yeah, I think that's kind of like something that made a huge difference for us. And that's also where we realized that, hey, we can just kind of like let loose and go wild and have
just
fun.
Play around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what was the most surprising thing that you learned about product building after these years of building Cleve, iterating to different versions, testing out different product ideas and all this? Was there a surprising thing about product building that you learned along the way that you didn't know before? Yeah.
I think especially in the B2C space, or rather, it's not necessarily B2C, but like in general, like products which have a self-serve kind of model. It is tricky. Like there's a lot of like nuance in all the different steps that leads to the conversion, and then also like you don't have that direct interaction with the customers a lot of times, and you're trying to do things which is at more scale essentially. So like getting the product right and like creating value is actually so important. And like your first guess is probably not going to be the right guess. So it does take quite a lot of iterations. I think we went through so many different kinds of like hypotheses around what's the main value as well, and we built out a lot of different kinds of solutions, and then we would kind of like see the way that users use it, do the user interviews and stuff like that, of course, but also like kind of recognize that it is not more difficult, but like it is a difficult game to play, and you really do need to kind of like try out a whole bunch of things and find a solution that is genuinely useful to a bunch of people. So I think that's kind of like where we were still making quite big swings. So recently we've been building like Cleve 2.0, and that's also kind of like a very big swing. Like we're doing a lot of things differently, open sourcing some of the prompts, allowing multiple model access and allowing user to have more control. So all these kinds of things are kind of like nuanced details in the product that we realize that are actually super important. And there's like, but the thing with this is also like, if you get it right, like in cases like Lovable, Notion, Granola, like all these kinds of products that have this opportunity to go viral and scale, it can go really right. You have a very different kind of growth trajectory if you get it right. But I think the more I read into a lot of these companies that we use every day, like Figma, like Loom, you realize that a lot of them had this long period of just kind of like trying out different things, experimenting, testing out different upgrade models, different like all these little details, right? before they find that one thing that really allows them to take off. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the whole the biggest lesson I think in product. Yeah.
I like how you were testing different new things along the way, especially you talk about Cleve 2.0, right? And then I saw what you shared on a story, and that's basically users can switch to different models to ask questions about themselves based on what they shared previously. The ideas or the notes that they have taken in Cleve app. One main question I have, right, is because model now still have a limited context window. Assuming if you just take it to the end of the spectrum where I have a very, very long notes that I put in Cleve app, how would the AI models be able to capture everything that I write about my journey, my ideas, everything about me, without missing some important details and generate content for me? Yeah. Sorry, I think this sounds a bit technical, but like, is there
Yeah,
a
no,
way
that's a
to
good question.
Yeah, is there a way to like how are you approaching this? Yeah.
So I think the key thing is how can we be as good of approximation as possible given the limitations in the models currently, right? One thing to factor in is that these models are just constantly improving, and they're able to handle more and more context every day. Gemini's context windows right now are ridiculous, and they're good at it. Like, I'm amazed. Like, even one of my previous podcasts was 3 hours long. I put the entire transcript into Notebook LM, and also working with Gemini. I mean, powered by Gemini, of course. And like the amount of detail that it's able to capture, even and what I suspect is happening is they're doing an RAG, and then they're also kind of like but providing the model with a ton of context rather than like being very specific with their RAG process. But it's just incredible like how much it's able to synthesize. And I think with the like there's a lot of techniques you can do to kind of like overcome some of the context issues. I think and then also you have to do some weightage of like what context is more important and what context is less important. So we do a lot of work in this space, like and I think when a lot of people talk about the whole wrapper debate, like I think this is kind of like where there are companies that are doing things like this, where you're trying to identify what's relevant, what's useful, how do you get the best possible outputs for users despite the limitations of the models and despite the limitations of like how much context it can receive. And I think that's kind of like the space that we're quite interested in. We want to try to work on that problem, the problem of context and processing huge amounts of context effectively. In our case, we kind of weigh and choose between like based on the user's query. Like, okay, we have a kind of an orchestration model that's deciding like, okay, which tool calls should I make? So we're doing tool-based RAG right now. So it's making a tool call towards, hey, I need the data for the user's LinkedIn profile for this particular prompt. And then I need a bit of data from their past notes and like search based on this query through their past notes. We might make a tool call towards, okay, I need some data on the user's past posts for this. Like if the user prompted something like, hey, I want to write a post about AI reflecting on all my key lessons in building, right, in the AI space. Right, then it might make a query about lessons and try to go through my LinkedIn post, see is there other things that I've written before on this topic. It might make a query in my notes on like AI and then see, okay, what are the things that I've written about AI? And then it just feeds a lot of this filtered context towards the model that's kind of like processing everything before delivering the final output. So many ways you can kind of overcome those limitations. I think that's the context problem is the same thing that I guess Cursor is working on. Granola now as well with their Granola 2.0. They're also kind of like processing the context of like tons of meetings. I think, but at the same time, I think the models are continuously getting better at this. So at some point, I suspect the context windows will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we may not need to do a lot of this pre-processing even via RAG and all this kind of stuff. But when that comes, then I guess a lot of these products will kind of improve. So it's one of those things where when you're building at the cutting edge, you're kind of like dependent on the technology and like what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Like it's a good thing because like you do get that. I think one of my friends, Kai Song, talks about it, where you get the headwinds. Is it called headwinds? Like the tailwinds? No, it's the tailwinds.
Tailwinds, yeah.
Yeah, from a model improvement. And I think that's kind of like where we do have certain hypotheses about where the models are going, like better reasoning, better context, better execution based on large amounts of context. Because a lot of times you still have the lost in the middle problem and stuff like that. So yeah, we can build according to some of these hypotheses on how the models will improve. Now that the model race is kind of like, it's very much like there's so many models out there and like everyone's kind of like competing. So it's good in a way for us because then we can just kind of like use the best models and work with what's now possible.
Yeah, I'm quite interesting. Let's dive deeper, right? Because like as you said, AI model is getting better and better, right? One day or maybe the next week, OpenAI release a new feature about, let's say, I don't know, content generator or some shit, right? And suddenly it kills a lot of other startups that are doing content generation stuff. Where do you see this going? Because OpenAI might release something that's quite similar to other startups that are doing the same thing. How do you build that moat moving forward? Instead of what people always call, you're just another API wrapper, stuff like that, right? How do you build that moat, and where do you see this going for Cleve?
Yeah, I think right now a lot of people talk about this. Okay, there's a few things I have in mind about this. I think one is like the context, like distribution is still ultimately the biggest moat right now. I think a lot of companies are kind of moving in this direction where like, hey, if you can access distribution, the switching cost for a company or for a person even to kind of like change their entire workflow just because something is released by another person, like it a lot of times people don't, there's a lot of inertia when changing products, right? So I think that's one thing. But the other thing is also, actually two other things. So the other thing is there are specific niches that large companies will not focus on that much, and they would not care because it's just their business is 90% revenue coming from model development, for example, in OpenAI's case. And they're really just trying to build the best models, deliver the best APIs. And that's kind of like the game that they're playing predominantly, it seems, right? Of course, I think OpenAI specifically, their ChatGPT consumer product is surprisingly a pretty good consumer product. Like they have a fantastic consumer team there as well. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, it has to be generalized enough to target a huge enough market. And I think that's kind of like where if you are building specific features for specific niche audiences that makes these models work for their use case, there is like, it's unlikely that OpenAI is going to come in. For example, I think in the research space, there's this tool called GenAI. Also a Singaporean team as well, and like when they were building in the AI research assistant space, like helping PhD students and helping students kind of like come up with their thesis leveraging AI. It's just right? Jenny AI.
Jenny AI, correct.
Yeah, so it's just unlikely that OpenAI is going to target that specific niche, and I think the same similar for content creation as well. Like personalized content creation in our case, right? The other thing is, can you build data moats? So in Granola's case, for example, if the meetings are recorded on Granola, you're not going to spend the time to transfer out all your data and move to a different platform just because it's like $1 cheaper, right? If you're used to the workflow, if it works, why switch? And also, all that context is so rich, right? I think it's quite similar for us because like we're primarily a note-taking tool initially. So like users are still dropping notes, dropping unique context, they're creating their content within Cleve. And it just makes it a lot more sticky in a sense where this tool, similar to ChatGPT's memory, right? A lot of people are not switching from ChatGPT to Claude purely because of the memory, right? So that same kind of case can happen. And I think that would be the other key moat right now, where are you capturing certain amounts of user context that you're able to kind of leverage in different ways. And then, yeah, so that's number two. Yeah, so I think targeting niche industries, building for specific customers, acquiring distribution, and then also acquiring data that's specific to the users and increases switching costs and makes it like slightly more difficult. I think those are like still the key things. But yeah, there's the other thing is also, I think there are just so many niche products that can be built today, which would solve people's problems in a way that a lot of people are not getting the leverage that they could be getting out of these AI models, right? I think especially if you look outside the tech society, like the tech community, where people are right now is largely drafting emails. And they don't know that you can use ChatGPT for data analysis. They don't know that you can use ChatGPT and like Claude for lots of other things, right? Because it just doesn't, it's not embedded in their workflows, and it's not marketed that way, largely, right? So yeah, if you can create the embedding, if you can create the marketing and the education and acquire distribution as a result, then I think there's still a lot of value to be built.
Like Cleve, right? I think they're super good. Like, honestly, I think their marketing is super good. Like
they're good. They're so good.
What the videos, and I mean, like you just knew that
there's a
distribution.
Great interview of the CEO Roy on EO, like the EO channel on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's such a great interview. He talks about like just risk in general. I think if anyone is struggling with like risk and like thinking about risk, like that's a video I would recommend, because it just made me feel like, holy shit, like nothing's too risky anymore. You could just do crazy shit and get away with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, I think Cleve. Are you using Cleve now, by the way?
Right now?
Yeah, right
no.
now. I need to ask first. Okay. Maybe Cleve.
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe at some point.
Alright. Wait, one thing, right, I have always wanted to ask is, because you are in the so-called P2C space for prosumers to use your product, generate content on LinkedIn and all these. And you say that, you have scaled from 0 to how many users now?
25,000.
25,000. How did you get your first 100 paying customers back then? When how do you convert people, right? Because people always love free stuff. How do you make them pay to use your premium features? Yeah. So from 0 to 100 customers. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it was let's see, it was primarily just like iterating on the product long enough to the point that like people saw a specific value. I think that was actually the biggest thing. And then the secondary things are things like, just making the whole process more frictionless. We experimented with a bunch of different pay points, like pay triggers, like number of free credits per month, number of free voice notes per month, all those kinds of things. And then we were kind of like looking at the distribution of use of the product, and then like, okay, if we were to kind of like set the paywall at this point, then this is the potential number of people who would be interested in converting as well. But I think honestly the biggest focus is just improving the product and like making something that's really good. And even right now, the way we're thinking about it still is largely like, even with the 2.0 release, is like, hey, I would say we're very much a product focused organization primarily. And like, we just need to build a good product, and people will see value in that. Like the right people will see value in that. Of course, I think finding the right people is one thing. Like posting on LinkedIn, sharing a lot of the behind the scenes, and as we're building, that made a huge difference to us. But yeah, like ultimately, I think it does come down to product, and like customers are largely making these quick decisions on like whether this creates value, whether it gets embedded into their behaviors, whether it's easy enough to get quickly embedded into their behaviors. So if you can kind of like get all those things right, then you typically do get the conversions happening after.
So product first, then behavior, user behavior, and then finally monetization.
Yeah. But that's also honestly something that we're still figuring out as well. So like, how do we what's the right way to do things. So I'm also kind of learning in the space too.
So you mentioned you scale user from 0 to 25,000 users, and every single day there are so many potential features that you can work on. How do you know what features to prioritize, and what are the key metrics that you focus on to see whether this is the feature that we should double down on that?
Yeah, so I think largely, I mean, we use a combination of like user interviews, personal intuition. I think actually, I would say like the intuition and discussions within the team is still number one first. Like identifying like because we are the customers ourselves as well. Like we do have these problems. We are trying to kind of like build products that solve our own problems. So like I think one mistake I made before was actually going to the data all the time. I was trying to like go into Mixpanel, try to get the answers, like what should we build next and stuff.
Yes.
But and just kind of like spend hours like going through the data. And I realized that like so much of building is creating this sense of intuition for yourself. Like trusting your own intuition first to come up with the hypotheses, and then only then you evaluate certain hypotheses based on the data. So largely, I think a lot of these conversations happen about like, hey, what do you feel like we should build next, and like what are the key things that would be beneficial to us, for example, in our own creator journeys, and then and then kind of like looking at the data. Okay, how many other people feel the same way, and then we do the user interviews, and then we do the testing and stuff like that. So it starts with intuition first, and I think that's the thing that I don't know, I didn't really hear much of. Like most people talk about like, you should be data driven, you should be constantly looking at this stuff, and but
why is intuition so important that you put it as a first step instead of what other people say? Let's start from the data. Let's see what user click, how they use the product and all this, and then build our intuition or hypothesis from there. So what makes you want to start with intuition first, then go to the data and
because I think if you just look at the data, there's so much to look at, and if you're not critically thinking about why things are happening the way they are happening from an intuition perspective, you can't make progress. And I think we were kind of like in that kind of state for a while, like where we were just kind of like obsessing over the data because everyone says you should, but not really thinking about why things are happening in a certain way. And like, what does this actually mean? And like taking a step back and also like, hey, if we ignore the data, if we just look at the product and we just use the product, like what are our pain points when using it, right? So I think those things, like if you look at, you can spend forever kind of just going through data and combing through data, and you might learn 1-2 things coincidentally, which was the case for me. But like most of the time, it's just kind of like you're just in a sea of like there's so much to look at, and it's impossible to kind of like navigate that, in my opinion, at least from my experience. So like I do feel like there's a lot of importance of forming those hypotheses beforehand. When you're talking to customers, for example, and like if the customer tells you that this is their problem or they couldn't understand this about a pricing page, then you look at the data to validate that, and see how many other people face the same problem that this customer talks about. Or maybe this customer didn't know how to generate the first post, right? They couldn't get to that point in a workflow, in a flow. And then you start to understand the reasoning behind it. Then you evaluate based on the data. Okay, is this actually a significant problem that we should focus on? And then like, okay, maybe yes, yeah.
Right. Could you maybe walk me through, maybe you can share one example, one feature that you use this entire workflow from intuition to data, I think user interview to finally launching that. Do you mind sharing one example so that I think can get a better idea of how that works?
Right, okay. So I think one of the things that okay, I guess one clear example, especially with the whole redesign, we rewrote the whole code base, by the way. So like we actually started from scratch, like for 2.0. Also, it's a mobile app, so we needed to write a lot of code anyways. So like I think one of the things that we constantly kept seeing as well is like a lot of people were accessing Cleve on their phone despite us having a web app, and then a lot of people were actually complaining to us as well about how like they keep getting logged out and stuff, because the web app is quite unstable and stuff. And then also when we want to do things like voice notes, because one of our key features is like, hey, if you're a busy founder, you're running between meetings, you can record a quick voice note of a content idea if that spark happens, when it happens. And then, but yeah, it would always be kind of unstable on your phone, like, and sometimes the recordings drop and stuff like that. And when we were kind of digging into the tech around this, we realized that like there are just certain limitations in building on the web, especially on mobile. And when we look at the data as well, we saw that like 60-70% of our users were on mobile first when using the product. So we also like 70% of like active or paid users, yeah. And then we realized that like, okay, this idea is only really going to work if we like invest in building a mobile app. I think in a large point, we did consider building like the chatbots first, so like building WhatsApp chatbot, Telegram chatbot instead. But then ultimately, at least for now, the hypothesis does seem to point towards like the flexibility and capability that we're able to add with a native mobile app, and there are certain things within the processes that we're able to do with the mobile app instead. So I think that was quite a lot of like personal intuition as well. Like we knew that customers have been talking to us about this, and they've been like asking for it the longest time. It is a decision that we knew we wanted to build, but it's a big decision because it's a big project to work on a mobile app, much more than the web, like so building on the web.
Does that mean your Cleve 2.0 no longer have the web version, just the mobile app?
Right now, we're building a mobile app first. Interestingly, the web app would be much faster because you can vibe code it and stuff. But with mobile apps, a lot of stuff, like the vibe coding tools aren't that great at it. So yeah, we had to do a lot of custom code manually for that. Yeah.
Got it. Wait, okay. Well, this is a very good example. Okay.
But also, if you look at like 60-70% of users like using the web app on their phone, right? And like active users, like it's also an indicator that, hey, how important is it to really focus on the web app for our use case, right? So that's also kind of like where we can make an intuitive and reasonable decision about like, hey, actually maybe the role of the web app is less important relative to like having something that's on our phones in our case.
Okay, this is quite a big swing, right? Basically, you scrape the old code, then you rewrote the entire code base and then focus on mobile app. Of course, intuition, I think, was the first thing that caused you to build this. I guess my question is, what makes you or your team want to take this bet? Because this was quite a huge bet in my opinion, right? You built a lot of things from scratch. Because the cost of missing this bet, I assume, is quite high. How do you arrive at that conclusion? Fuck this, let's do the mobile and script the old code and redo.
Yeah, it's scary. It's pretty scary. I think there are certain. I think when we look at the first version of the product, like yes, it was solving a bunch of problems, but there was so much more that we wanted to build. And also when we speak to users, we realize that okay, there's actually like a lot of things that they want to achieve. And also, when we look at the technology as well and the direction that the market is heading, we have a lot more agentic workflows now. We have a lot more like innovation happening in that space, tool calling and stuff like that. So like, we were looking at the current product, and if we wanted to incorporate a lot of these additional capabilities, it would still need a total redesign. And then also given the data that like so many of our users are using us on mobile, and like and also just based on the intuition, like when we talk to people, like there are actually like the kinds of profiles that we serve best are people who are just generally on the go. They just don't have time to like sit down in front of their laptop and write for like 2 hours, right? That's the reason why they're using AI for this in the first place. And they're trying to create on the go. So like I think that's kind of like where we also like that, coupled with like some of the technological improvements that we could incorporate, we decided to kind of like really start again. And I think the CEO of Perplexity, do you know his name? Aravind, I think.
Arvin, I think. Let me just Google.
Yeah. But yeah,
Okay, maybe.
he's a cool guy. I think
Okay.
one thing that he talks about as well is like even at companies at their scale, like you really have to reinvent yourself. If you're working at the cutting edge, you have to reinvent yourself every 4 or 5 months. And I think that's something that we also kind of realized where, like any solution that you build right now needs to adapt quite a lot as the technology changes and as the market changes. So like I think that's also where we realized that I mean there was also a combination of like technical debt in the original product, and we were like, hey, you know what, if we really wanted to build a bunch of these things, it's also easier to actually just build it in a new product. So we actually migrated databases. We did a lot of like things from scratch this time. And also we're able to make better decisions now that we have data on the first product as well.
Yeah, I was also assume that building a mobile is very different from building a web app. It's not just the user flow and UX, but like the code base is also very different, right? Like you said, even vibe coding doesn't work that well for mobile app.
Actually like support of React Native and all these kinds
Actually,
of
I'm quite
things.
surprised. I thought Cursor can actually help you build, I mean, like a proper mobile app with a good prompting and all this. So from your experience, you don't see that work quite well, even with Cursor to build a mobile app. Is that something you encounter?
So details I'll need to check with Rasha and Fao,
Okay.
who are primarily building this. I think on the limitations, what I do understand from talking to them is that it's relative to web app. Like because I think if you look at Lovable, like a lot of these products that came out, the code bases that, and also the amount of data, right? The amount of training data on web apps.
GitHub, I don't know.
The GitHub training data on web apps is just monumentally more than mobile apps. Like the number of mobile apps that are open source as well is like way lower than web apps. For example,
there should be a Cursor for mobile app, right? Someone has to build that. I think.
I think that would be a hit. Or like a Lovable for mobile apps, even like you know something that's. I mean, I think Bolt has kind of like done the Expo integration, so Bolt is kind of like the closest thing to it, I think, right now. But even then, it's tricky.
I like the idea of the vibe coding, but right now, as you can see, right, people can build, even for non-technical people, even for you, right? Like with vibe coding, anyone can build a product over the weekend. And if someone, let's say a college kid, right, the person wants to build and clone Cleve over the weekend, do you see that happening, or do you see vibe coding makes the space way more competitive than before? And how do you see Cleve can win in that space if everyone is building something similar, content generator and all this shit, right? Is that coming back to what you said earlier, distribution, data mode and all this, or do you see that otherwise? Sorry, there are a lot of questions there, but like
that's cool.
So sorry.
So I think it probably does come back to that to an extent, but I think the other thing is, right now, I think when you look at the headlines and when you look at the demos on Twitter, it does seem like they can do a lot, like everything. The reality is, even if we would have liked to be able to vibe code everything that we've built, it would have been nice if we could just do this in a day, But the reality is, for more complex products, it is still like what AI can do is still really, really far. And a lot of times, like Fao and Rashad are spending a lot of time really debugging vibe coded code. Like I mean, I wouldn't call that vibe coding, because it's more of like AI assisted programming, but like AI assisted code essentially. And the reality is like they're not as good as I think people make it look like they are, like as good as the marketing looks like, right? And the kinds of products that you can build. I mean, first of all, I think it's a great thing that like anyone can build products. I think it's been really helpful even for us, like internally when we were building out the 2.0 version as well. Even from like our previous workflow is we would like do a lot of sketching, design stuff on Figma, and then like pass it over to Russia to like build and stuff. But now it's like we would design things in Figma, we would straight away like put into the vibe coding tool, we would iterate with the vibe coding tool, like Lovable or Bolt, and try out different UXs, try it out, and then like be like, oh no, shit. We actually killed so many like variations of what the 2.0 version could be before Rashad wrote a single line of code. Right. And when we were trying to figure out what to build next as well, it was also like iterating with vibe coding tools is incredible. Right. And it's crazy that I was able to, like, without any real experience in this, I was able to kind of like vibe code a note-taking tool similar to what we were thinking of building, and then also like have it on my phone and try it out, like without touching a line of code. So I think for prototyping and for coming up with ideas and getting ideas out there, and actually even building like simple products, it's totally possible. I think when it comes to more complex things, like what we were trying to do here is like, actually, there are certain nuances in building like products that are just released to the wild. Like, for example, especially AI products, you really need to make sure your token costs are managed, and you have to protect against hackers and stuff like that. So there was this one time we actually almost got hacked. And we were getting hacked, and then we had to like stop it. So with AI tools especially, when you are working with AI APIs and stuff, they can get really expensive really fast. And what happened was, when we initially launched the first, like one of the early versions of the product, we didn't build in a lot of security features because we felt like, oh, it's only released to a small group and like it's unlikely that anything will happen. So yeah, we released it first. And then like, I think a couple of days after we released, some random guy like started creating a lot of fake accounts, and then started sending a lot of like putting in tons of prompts, exhausting the free credits and stuff like that, and then also kind of like just generally abusing the product. And then we hadn't had rate limiting and all this kind of stuff set up because we just launched right in the initial launch. So yeah, it was interesting, and I think like it's those kinds of things that you really need to understand a bit more about the tech, and like what are some of the security systems that you need to build in, like rate limiting, some of the ways to kind of prevent abuse and stuff. And for example, I think at those days, right, we didn't even have like context input and context output limits. So the user was kind of like sending in like 30,000 words as context, and like and we would get charged for that. So even though it's credit based, but like they can still send 30,000 words of context into a chat box, and then we get charged for input costs. So yeah, I think after that we kind of learned that before we release something, there's a couple basic like rate limiting stuff that we need to do and stuff like that, and then we need to think about the engineering behind that such that it's efficient and stuff. So yeah, I think that's where like when you want to take something that's vibe coded, I think it's great for coming up with ideas, testing things, building prototypes, but like to get it to production and safely, I think that's where a lot of like good engineering comes in. And for people like me who haven't coded before, it's like there is a learning curve there where you do need to kind of understand like what needs to be done. And you don't know what you don't know a lot of times. So like how can people abuse the system? Yeah,
I agree. Especially the API key, you can't just expose that on the front end for
that's,
right?
That's the biggest one. I think there's
on Twitter or for someone who's on X or something, right? He said that he vibe coded the product in like one day, and then the next day you're like, shit, someone is like DDoS the product and all this.
So there's this other meme I saw, like someone was asking, oh, what is GitHub? I don't understand what's GitHub. And then someone replied, GitHub is the place where you can get lots of free API keys. For
You never upload your environment files on GitHub and all this. A lot. Even when I'm doing that, I'm also try to be aware of all these potential security risks there. But like, okay, so this brings me to another question, right? Maybe a follow-up one is, throughout all these years of building Cleve, definitely you as a founder, you have made a lot of mistakes. Could you maybe briefly summarize what are the two key or two biggest mistakes that you make when building Cleve? I don't know whether the DDoS attack is considered one, but like feel free to think of.
I think getting to talk to customers like a lot of people say talk to customers, right? But I think one of the big lessons for me was also kind of like, and the big mistakes was also like, I would go into these calls without a hypothesis and without an idea, and I would try to kind of like get ideas from the users. I like try to, figure out what to be building next. And I think that's kind of like where you really have to be similar to what I talked about earlier, building your own intuition and like coming up with hypotheses, and like you have to do the thinking first, and then only go to the customer, or like when you have some thoughts in mind, right? And then like, yeah, so I think that's one thing. Also, like whether it's going to customers, whether it's going through data, so much time was wasted, I think, just kind of like mindlessly going through these customer interviews and mindlessly going through data without like really having a core thing that I was trying to test or trying to validate or trying to realize. And then I think the other thing is like, this is more of a like, not so much a business thing, like not so tactical, but like more personal. I think the journey of building like you're like it's actually very, very much a personal journey, very much more a personal journey than a business journey, at the end of the day. And like recognizing that, yeah, you do have to kind of like learn and adapt and like become a better person through this process. And that's actually one of the biggest changes that you'll see in your life, I think, largely, where you are just like becoming more resilient, becoming more confident, like being more willing to reach out to people that you would previously never reach out to, like take this opportunity to do crazy things, and be yourself in the process, like have fun with it. I think those things matter a lot more in hindsight. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I love how you say being a founder is a personal journey, because it really is, especially when you are dealing with shit and all the doubts that are coming up, or when the family is asking you, what are you doing here with your life, like why are you doing this. Okay, so what I capture, right, is, so first mistake is, back then you said that you didn't have something concrete to test without the intuition or hypothesis. So it's kind of like waste of time when you went to talk to the customers because you don't know what to test. Like just talk to them, stuff like that. So this one. The second mistake is, could you remind me what's the second one? Second mistake that you made when building Cleve?
I think to an extent, right. A large part of the focus, especially in the early stages, we were kind of like trying to focus on growth and then focusing on product and like and then like constantly jumping back and forth between these things. I think, yes, growth is important, and like figuring out distribution, yeah, like it is important. But ultimately, I think one thing that we've realized more recently, especially, is like focusing on product is actually like the whole team. It is not like a one person, you do product, you do growth. Like it really has to be like we are really primarily dedicated to building good products that solve customer problems. And then everything that we do around that, like the marketing, the messaging, the communication, the talking to customers, the sales, revolves around building a good product. Like the number one priority of the organization, especially, well, particularly in this space, right, where it's really competitive, things change quickly, is like, yeah, the focus has to be on product. And I think that's one thing that we only more recently refocused on, I think in the last 2 or 3 months, where like we decided that, hey, we're not going to try to do another viral campaign thingy. Our 100% focus is going to be on like making a good product. Yeah.
Okay. So basically back then, you guys focused too much on growth and marketing, but not the product. But then after that, you realize actually product is the most important part. So let's focus on the product, and the growth and marketing, all this will come naturally if the product is good enough, right? Okay, love that. Throughout this sharing, right, I realize you keep going back to building intuition, and how important it is as a founder. Like, how do you build your own intuition or maybe taste as a founder? Because they're so important. and probably maybe you can explain, right, what is intuition, because I don't know whether people know what intuition even means, right? Maybe different people have different definition. So what's intuition and taste? Second is, how do you build your intuition and taste as a founder? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still learning in this space as well, but like from what's been working, or like what's been helpful for me so far, has been largely like really being an early adopter of a lot of products and a lot of tools out there. Like trying out the newest stuff like regularly. I mean, it's not like something painful. It's something I do enjoy doing as well.
Yeah.
But like as you're trying out products, as you're trying out things, taking note of like what are the nuanced details that makes these products so good, right? Like what makes them work, right? I think like being, the funny thing is, like, I used to be in music, right? And when like one thing that people teach when you're performing in a band and stuff like that is building this music intuition. And the way you do that is like you listen to a lot of songs, but you don't just listen to the songs. You really pay attention to every, like, strip the songs into the individual parts, the vocals, the bass, the guitars. What are all the instruments doing? What are they doing throughout the song? Like to build drama, to release tension, to like how do you compose the whole song, right? And a lot of very successful musicians talk about like that's the way you build intuition in the music space. You actively listen and actively write down like, oh wow, what made this song work? Like, why is Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso so like catchy? And like, why does it stay in your head? How many words per minute is she using in the chorus? How many, like, what is she doing pre-chorus? Like, how does she build that energy and retain that throughout the song? So I think it's very similar with like building product sense. It's like you want to kind of like try out lots of different products, be very attentive to all the little details that they put into it, and write these things down. Like actually, like I have a notebook where whenever I'm testing a new product, I'm actively writing down, oh, I like this, oh, I like that they did this, oh, this is actually really cool. And then we would have conversations within the team where we're kind of sharing, oh, what do we find useful in different products, and like, oh wow, actually, yeah, that was actually really, really interesting, like how they did that. And it just works. Like it just feels incredible when you put all these things together. So like really regularly, I think, strip down products to their bare bones, the same way you would strip down music if you're a musician. And I think that's been helpful. Yeah.
I like how intentional you are when you are trying new products and all this, because typically people, when they try new products, they just try and then have fun and then that's it, right? They wouldn't even jot down on notes or know what works, or rather pay much attention to little details and all this. So your playbook is basically, in order to build intuition and taste, try new things, try new products, be intentional, pay attention to little details, and then build the intuition along the way, the taste, so that when it comes to you building your own product, you intuitively know what product or features to build or include.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, sometimes it's more of like you don't realize it, but when you're building the product, like when you're designing, for example, you would start to do things that you wouldn't really understand why you're doing it, but it just feels right. And that's I think that's the thing that gets built up over time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, something I should learn as well. To be more intentional. Yeah, I love it. Okay, when building startups, there's so much uncertainties out there, internally and externally. Do you have your go-to decision-making mental model? You have to make so many decisions every day. Do you have I don't know whether you have a playbook or a framework that you use to make certain decisions, especially those high bets decisions that you do. Yeah. So what's the decision-making model? Yeah.
I'll give an example. I think when we were trying to decide to do the whole mobile app and redesign and rewriting the code base, that's like an enormous bet. Like we'd really have to really decide to move forward on that. I think it did come down to like if number one, is this like a 60% reasonable decision at this point? Like does this, like it there's very few times that you'll get to like 90% certainty on a decision. If you really are at 90% certainty, it means that you've probably spent way too much time doing initial testing and stuff like that. Like, even right now when we're rolling out the 2.0 product, like we're just rolling out to a bunch of friends first, and then like a bunch of like people on the wait list as well, and then like and we don't need 100. Like, we don't need everyone to be like, oh yeah, this is a crazy good product and stuff like that before we kind of subsequently increase the rollouts. And we don't need to kind of like iterate that much before we just need a 60% confidence before we kind of like progress to the next point. And then get more data, talk to more people. Like, so I think you're largely working on 60% confidence most of the time in a lot of things. And that's really tricky because like, I think that's the thing that, because previously when I was studying engineering, like, you know, when you do engineering problems, you usually have 100% confidence. You can even test whether the solution that you came to is the correct solution. Not statistical, right? It's usually first principles based. But with products and like business and stuff, it feels like a lot of times you are making just 60% reasonable guesses with a bunch of assumptions. And yeah, I think that was actually like one thing that I write about in my journals and stuff as like probably the biggest change in mental model that I've had to have when transitioning from something that's more deterministic and like, you know, you execute output, you're gonna get rewarded for that, like you succeed in that, right, to something that's okay, you're gonna execute an output, 60% chance it's not gonna be the right, like 40% chance it's not gonna be the right one, but yeah, you can kind of somewhat trust your intuition initially and then like get more confident over time. So yeah, that's tricky. And then building that, like you said, internal and external confidence. I think building that internal confidence within yourself, and having that internal conviction. A lot of times, like things fail not because it really was a bad product or it was it was the wrong thing to build. I think sometimes things fail also just because, like you don't have enough conviction to make it successful, right? To make it a reality, like to even do the rep in the way some people call it, like to finish the set. So yeah, I think that's kind of like where a lot of time, like I mean a lot of times, like a lot of my productive times is also spent like, you know, spending time with family, spending time with like friends and stuff around me, and like building that internal compass and like that grounding. I think it makes a big impact, yeah, even in this area.
So 60% confidence plus 40% testing,
yeah,
and 100% execution. So there is your playbook right there. Interesting, yo. I before I ask the question, I thought you might probably say something like, I don't know, 80% or 70%. Well, but like 60% is, well, you are a risk taker, man. You're a risk taker. Yeah, you're a risk taker. I love that. Cool. Okay. Now, okay, given, I think probably this is the second last one. As you build Cleve, there's so many ups and downs along the way. Was there a time that you burn out, or you realize that you ignore your health? How do you maintain that and make sure that you don't burn out again, or making sure that, you know, while you are hustling and building this company, you can still keep your health in check, whether it's a mental health or physical health?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's quite tricky. I think you also like understand this well, from all the projects that you've been working on. I think it's like, the difficult thing is, I think, yeah, it can get quite lonely quite quickly. And I think people don't, like when I was going into this as well, like when you're coming from a place where, yeah, there's so many people around you and stuff, and then now you're just kind of like alone building, or with like some co-founders, it helps a lot. But like, when you're largely alone building, yeah, it's tricky to kind of like have that sense of confidence. And like, I think there were many times where I would go through these seasons of like, oh no, like, did I make the right call? Like, is it like, what the
fuck am I doing in my life? Alright, what the fuck am I doing in my life? Everyone is like settling down, getting married, and going to corporate job.
Yeah.
Right? How do you handle those?
like a big habit that I did kind of pick up eventually was kind of like spending more time just like journaling a lot. Actually, I actually spend quite a lot of time writing, and actually that makes the biggest impact, I think. There's this method called free writing, which I started doing particularly more recently, where you just open up a blank page and you just start writing like whatever's on your mind, and you don't try to make it like consistent, don't try to make it like flow properly, like just write whatever's on your mind as if you're like I think the way, so one of the guys who popularized this, his name is Farza. He's also a builder, like he's the founder of BuildSpace.
Oh, big fan, man. Like,
so he also built this tool called FreeWrite, and and the idea is you just kind of like pretend that you're an LLM and you're just expensing all your tokens, like and just releasing whatever's stored, right? And that's actually been really helpful, I think, especially when I'm feeling particularly insecure or particularly inconfident. Then like writing out, okay, where are my convictions and like why. And like connecting with people as well, I think. Talking to friends who don't really care about how the business is doing, they just care about me as a person. Like it's just nice, like that kind of thing. And so important to not let go of that too much.
It is easy to get drowned with all the work and I don't know, the hard stuff out there. But I mean, glad that journaling and talking to friends work for you. I've met so many my founder friends who actually got burnout because they were just suffering alone, never talk to anyone else. I think it's something that not a lot of people, actually very few people talk about, very few founders talk about this. Everything that they share online is good stuff and all the successful thing, which is good. I mean, it is something that I'm quite keen. Good, given what you know now, I mean, if you can go back to day one of building Cleve from scratch again, what will you do differently to accelerate your progress or traction that you have? Will you do anything different, or will you just do the same thing that you have?
Interesting. I think I would largely, I don't know, it's hard to say because like a lot of things like you really, you only learn while you're doing it. But I think if I were to go back, like, or if I were to start something new now,
given what you know now, on hindsight, okay.
I think the number one thing is actually just like shouting from the rooftops a lot more, and like trying to tell everyone, like trying to explain like what we're building as well, and like what we're trying to solve more. I think could have done that better, and then also like really documenting the process better, and like involving people more in the process, but also just kind of like instilling more fun, honestly, into things. Like for example, when like more recently, I think what I've found really fun to do and also just like useful as well is like involving people in like, hey, I've got 2 versions of this landing page, what do you think is better? And like just kind of like building as if your whole community is part of your team. And like, hey, we have this idea, what do you guys think? And like just be very open. Like I think this is the other thing where lots of founders try to build in stealth initially, and like they try to like just not release anything as long as possible. But like in reality it's like, because, and a lot of times it's fear of competition stealing and like competition kind of copying what you're doing and stuff. And I think the reality is like like people can copy, like even right now with Cluely, for example, like there's so many copycats out there. But to take a company to that scale is a really hard thing to do. And it's not about just copying the product anymore. I think we talked about vibe coding earlier as well. It's really not much about copying the product. Like tech is actually, I would say, probably actually executing tech is not the hardest part of the product, of the business as well. So like, I think largely just shouting from the rooftops more, like, hey, guys.
Just build in public.
Build in public a lot more.
Okay. Okay, this is a bit personal, right? what's your biggest fear for Cleve now? And how do you intend to go about solving that? Yeah. Or you have no fear at all?
I think
I don't know.
it's natural for most people to kind of like feel like, you know,
Yeah.
there's of course this fear of like, what if this doesn't work out and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and like and like not being able to accomplish the goals that you set for yourself and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I don't know. I try not to think too much about it, because it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the more you think
Yeah.
about it, the more it becomes reality. So but when I do have those kind of like more dark thoughts, it's kind of like, hey, okay, realistically, where are we at? We do have a bunch of people who really love the product. We do have a bunch of really loyal supporters. We have a bunch of friends who really trust us, and like and at the end of the day, we're kind of our own people. Are we like personally growing through this journey? Even if revenue flatlines for a while, like, are we actually like, what is the net growth overall? It's not just revenue. A lot of times it is actually just your personal growth as well, and like your learnings and your insights that you're gaining, like the progress. Oh, that's another thing where I think a lot of people tend to focus on revenue as a progress metric too much to an extent, because a lot of times, like, for example, I could growth hack my way to, like, I don't know, X revenue, but then I could have immediately 90% churn in the next like 2 weeks. So like, but I'll make the money, you know, like, and then but yeah, like I think that's kind of like where like the most important metric, in my opinion, is actually just like building something that people like genuinely.
Like YC.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
something people
actually,
want,
yeah, that is
and
not
it's
exactly
just
my
like-
opinion, but yeah.
Okay.
It's become my opinion, so I think that's fair. But yeah, building something people genuinely love, and like and hence, you know, the focus on product. Yeah.
Okay. For founders listening right now, what's the one piece of advice you give them before they start?
I think the most important thing is to have faith in yourself, actually, like have conviction in yourself. If you're thinking of starting something, it's a lot less about I think, in my opinion, it's a lot less about the viability of things, because you will kind of like most likely try something that's not viable initially, and then like find your way to something that's viable. So like, I think the most important thing is like, yeah, do you want to go on this adventure? Like, is this something that you want to do in life? Is this something on your bucket list that you've always wanted to do? And then like figuring out, okay, what's the next steps? Is there an accelerator? Is there a program? Is there, can you just bootstrap your way through this? Like, are there people that you know in your network, or people that you've come across who could, you know, you could have coffee chats with, like learn from, and like kind of go on this adventure, like and treat it like an adventure in a way. Yeah, because like most adventures, it's not always going to be fun. Like, there's no movie that's fun all the time and happy all the time. I think adventure is the right word, where you're often just lost in the abyss and you're just trying to find your way out. But like, it's fun in the moment, you know. Oh wait, no, it's fun in hindsight. It's often scary in the moment, but like, yeah. But I guess it's a journey that can be fun to look back at.
Yeah, and memorable. Where do people find you online if they want to follow up with you on anything, or maybe ask you questions? Yeah.
So it's Ashvin Praveen on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and then all my links are at ashvinpraveen.com as well.
Okay, and how can our listeners be useful to you?
Yeah, I mean, try out Cleve. You can use it for free, and give us feedback as much as possible. Like, I think we're still in that phase of like really genuinely listening. You can actually like reach out to me directly on Instagram or LinkedIn. I do reply to everyone who like reaches out. So like, yeah, if you have feedback, if you have ideas, anything really, like, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom and the journey of building Cleve today, man. Really appreciate your time here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good chat.
Thanks, man. All right. Thank you. Yep.
See you.
Hey.